There we go. Now we are working. Awesome,
Oh,
beautiful.
oh.
Appreciate you for doing this, Brian.
Sure.
How was your day? How was your weekend?
It's good, thanks. Nice and sunny here on the coast of Peru.
Coast of Peru. Holy cow, that's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
What time is it there then? It's Eastern. It's the same as over here in Michigan.
It's 1:05.
Okay, beautiful. That's crazy. I would think that it would be. Oh, I guess it's the same sort of latitude and stuff, but I would have figured it'd be something crazy. But do you is your permanent residence over there?
Mm-hmm.
That's nuts. How long have you been living out there? Like as a
About
permanent resident?
12 or 13 years.
That's crazy. Because I watch almost every video you post, and you're always out in Peru, whether it's a fresh video or whether it's one that you've taken in the past that you've edited and gone over.
Mm-hmm.
That's so cool. Where, I guess I'll start out. Where did you grow up? I know you're Canadian, correct?
Well, I'm Canadian and American. I've got both citizenships. So I was born in the U.S., grew up in Canada, and
Okay.
have moved back and forth over the course of time.
That's cool. That's cool. I guess when was your first big sort of adventure? When was your first big travel? Like what intrigued you to do this sort of stuff, even prior to going into ancient civilizations and stuff like that? Was there something that sparked it? Did you always, because you travel more than probably anyone I've ever watched or now met, which is
Mm-hmm.
insane.
Well, I guess the first time was when I went to England when I was 16, and I went to Stonehenge with a friend of mine. So that was, that's one of the classic megalithic sites to go to. There wasn't a fence around it, so you were able to walk right up to the stones, which was kind of
Really?
amazing.
Were you able to touch the stone?
Yeah, at that time you were.
That's amazing. That's cool. Is there, you talk a lot about when you go to these ancient sites, megalithic sites, especially, of like feeling the energy of the sites, whether it's Stonehenge or whether it's in Peru or Egypt and stuff like that. Did you get that sense when you were 16 back then that these places are something special and there's more to them than what mainstream academia sort of tells us?
Not really. It's the first megalithic site I'd ever actually been to physically. So I was just in awe of seeing something, because
Yeah.
growing up in Canada, there's nothing like that. So to go and
Yeah.
see that in person was quite incredible.
Yeah, that's crazy. And so 16, you went to Stonehenge. What did you go to school, college, anywhere, studying this type of stuff?
Well, I studied science at the University of Victoria in British Columbia, Canada. So, that gave me a good scientific background to look at these places in a in an analytic kind of way. So that's why
Yeah.
I don't tend to have too many theories about how stuff was done or
Yeah.
who did it. I just like to show people what the stuff looks like.
And that's really why I love your channel. That's really why I love your work. Because you'll go to these sites, you're actually there. You're not behind a desk. You're not just sitting there talking about stuff. You're actually at the sites. You're showing these clearly machined, machine cuts, machine boreholes. You're actually showing them. So that's what's really cool. And like when it comes to things like Peru, Machu Picchu and stuff like that, and all over Peru, like those interlocking polygonal masonry stones and stuff like that,
Mhm.
all over the comments, the guys, I mean, it's fine to hear different theories. That's what we want to hear, because that's how you get to the bottom of stuff. But a lot of people saying that stuff is geopolymer concrete and stuff. What do you think about, I guess next question, what do you think about the geopolymer concrete idea for Peru specifically?
I don't buy it at all, because to make geopolymer means you have to grind stone up to the consistency of flour, basically, and that would take a hell of a lot of work.
Yeah.
And then you have to be able to mix in different things as a binding agent. So that's geopolymers is a pretty relatively recent discovery. So
Yeah.
I see no evidence of that, whether it's in Egypt or Peru or Pumapunku
Yeah,
in Bolivia. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I tend to agree on that. I mean, and Peru, I mean, all over these places, all over these megalithic sites, from Peru to Egypt, all over the place. They all display. One of the videos that intrigued me, one of your videos that intrigued me the most was your first video you did at Tanis, and then
Hmm.
your second one. And just seeing, because I had never seen that site, and like you say in the video, it hasn't been open for as long, not nearly as long as all the other sites around there. And then I watched another video. I don't know if you've traveled with him, but Ben from UnchartedX.
Oh, sure.
Um,
Yeah, I've known Ben for, I think, about 10 years.
yeah, he's super awesome. Another great channel if people haven't watched that. There's quite a few. Same with sort of a newer channel, but Jimmy with Bright Insight. He does a
Yeah.
lot of good videos. He's a really good one. But Tana specifically, that place is super intriguing, because I know in your videos and one that I've watched with Ben, he goes to the place and you clearly see like something had just completely, or people just simply coming in and destroying it with cannonballs, and fear that something, I'm not sure what it was, but something completely just like decimated, exploded basically, as if it was a comet, as if it was some energy release or expulsion or something like that, maybe a solar flare, something like that. And
Hmm.
then what was crazy was on some of the sides of these stones, which some of them are either granite or even diorite and stuff like that, some of the hardest stones on earth, which you always talk about, they look like they were melted, like the stone was actually melted. What is your main thought or main line of thinking? Do you think it was, 'cause there's a lot of theories that you talk about as well, which I'm starting to believe more, with the pyramids and these structures being sort of like energy either harnessers, or their location and the way they're built were used to harness or use the energy somehow. Do you think that it was something like that, like a man-made, like almost, so like today we have nuclear reactors and stuff, and those go wrong all the time. Well, not all the time, but they have gone, and it's like, do you think it's something like that, like a lost technology that something went wrong, or do you think it was more of like Graham Hancock's theory of um, a torrid meteor coming down and decimating the whole area? Because I'm kind of convinced of almost both.
Hmm. Well, I think it was probably possibly part of a comet that struck the area,
Mhm.
or Robert Schoch's theory of a pulse from the plasma from the sun. But yeah,
Right.
there's definite, as you saw in the video, there's definite evidence that some of the quartzite has been melted
Hmm.
and discolored, because quartzite is normally kind of a cream color. And you saw with some of the stone that is like purple or black and melted. And then it looks like some of the granite things that literally exploded. So,
Right.
different stones react to heat in different ways, but I think that's what happened. Also, the fact that almost nothing can grow there means that any nutrient that was in the soil was vaporized.
That's another thing. The whole area around that looks like a Martian surface. There's not
Yeah,
even little weeds growing up. And if you're in right by the pyramids and stuff, there's at least little tumbleweeds growing up, little plants and stuff. But here it's just completely annihilated, completely sterilized, basically. So that's
yeah,
super interesting. Um, and that site, there's some stones there, some blocks, and what look like stones that were turned on lathes. Those are, especially in the picture, your video picture, your video title picture for, I think, your most recent Tanis video. You see this foot that is just the size of it's a decimated part of a foot that was some sort of statue. What,
Mhm.
how big were the stones, these megaliths at Tanis? Like, is there any sense? Because they're so blown apart, and I know they had to unbury basically like 20 feet or something like that of sand and stuff just to get to it. Are these megaliths there? Are they as big as I mean, other places around Egypt, around the plateau and such?
Well, there are remnants of probably 13 obelisks, like broken
Okay.
into pieces, and
Yeah.
the quarry's 1,000 miles to the south, and the Nile River is not very close, so transporting that would be incredibly difficult. And then the foot you mentioned, um, supposedly you're only allowed to visit a very small percentage of that site because it's in a military police base. So there are literally people in black suits that follow you with machine guns under their jackets. And if you stray off from where, where you're supposed to go, then they tell you to come back. So I've heard that the remnants of two giant statues are up and over a hill. And
Really?
so the statues would originally be somewhere between 60 and 100 feet tall and made of one piece of stone.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Absolutely incredible. Another question regarding Egypt. The bent pyramid. I just watched a video. You've covered it too many times, but I watched a video with Ben at UnchartedX. It was his latest video, and he was there with, I'm sure you know, I know you know Yousef Awyan.
Oh, yeah.
Very, very, very smart guy, and like he's so important to have out there telling the actual, at least showing the actual artifacts, and not just being a Zahi Hawass, not saying that they were just using copper and bronze tools and little whatever they use, friction saws and stuff to cut these things, because it's clear he was underneath the bent pyramid. I think he was with it was Yousef and Ben, and they were showing the pottery, and it was like there's no way that these vases and stuff were carved out, because some of them were granite, some of them were like a crystal material, and some of them were so thinly spun that he shined a light on the outside of one, and the light, you could like it was almost transparent. And
Mhm.
there's lathe marks, there's centering marks on the bottom of these, and on the inside clear that they were done with some sort of machine. A question I have is, if they were done on a lathe, say there's a theory that they were, say they had machines, right? Say they had some sort of tech. Is there any sort of lathes or anything that are, sorry to sound uneducated on this, but like, is there like a foot ped? You know how like you can use foot pedals for like clay, making clay vases and stuff like that. Is there some sort of thing like that where you can do a human powered thing? Is there some not so grandiose theory on how they did that stuff? I mean, these things are pretty incredible.
Well, the archaeologists don't even approach how they were done. Again, that's the problem. And they list
Mhm.
them, they're listed in the Cairo Museum as being pre-dynastic. So that
Right.
means they were made before the invention of the potter's wheel. That's what they admit. And
Okay.
as you said, you see machine marks. It's unlikely that it was actually a lathe. It was more like a CNC machine, which is a computer controlled cutter, because
Yeah.
of course some of them have the lobes sticking out, the front or the sides. So
Yeah.
if you spun that on a lathe, they would break off. So it's more like some machine went in and was able to simply computer control do that cutting and all that shaping. So that's
That's
very technically advanced.
Yeah, 100%. Um, Another question that just reminded me. I know there's a few theories, but I wanted to get your take on it. You said lobes, and that reminds me of what you see in Egypt on the casing stones of the Great Pyramid. You see it in Peru and the polygonal masonry and such. Those knobs that come out of these stones, um, that are part of the stone, and they're in areas. where it doesn't seem like they would just be used for lifting, and it's not on all the stones, and it's definitely not even on the biggest of the stones.
Mhm.
So I've heard one theory that maybe they're, because they've obviously lasted incredibly long, and through whatever cataclysmic events happened, and perhaps earthquakes and such. Do you think that it's sort of like energy release area strategically placed on certain stones throughout the walls, or what's your take on those?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good theory. They were obviously deliberately done that, done on purpose. And the idea that they were used for lifting doesn't make sense because they're almost never at the center of gravity.
Yeah.
So I think they had, something to do with energy movement. Some people say that the machine that or device that made them was like an extrusion process.
Mhm.
But yeah, that's of course one of the most curious questions that nobody has a real proper answer for.
Right.
Yeah, that's one of the great enigmas.
It's really incredible. And they're in plate though. Sometimes they're low, sometimes they're high. Some people think that they were little plate. I mean, they're obviously weathered down, so they may have been larger or more protruding, but maybe some wood was set across them, or from one to the other, something like that. But again, they're in such a non-uniform order that it wouldn't make sense for it's not really a like little perches for you to say put wood to maybe put a canopy over a house or something like that. It's kind of like you said, it's an enigma.
Mhm.
Um, Going from that topic, you do a lot of videos and work on the possible existence of an ancient race of giants, whether it's you want to call them the Nephilim or any of those names. What got you interested in that? Just a basic question.
I'm not really interested in the giants so much. There are a lot of other researchers who do that. So
Mhm.
I've tended to stay away from the Anunnaki and the Nephilim kind of stuff because there are a lot of people doing that research. But of course, one
Right,
of my interests are the elongated skulls that are found,
right.
in different parts of the world, especially where I'm at right now.
Yeah, definitely. And there's quite a few museums that I've seen you do videos on where they display some of these elongated skulls, and it's clearly with the cranial deformation. It's not just head binding like you see in some cultures, especially in Africa and stuff, because
Mhm.
there's it's the lions and stuff. They're natural, so it's they were born like this without any deformation post birth. Um, on the just back to the giant topic, I agree. There's a lot of other people that are doing it, and there's a lot of conspiracy that say giants have been found, whether it's in North America, whether it's the Native American burial mounds and stuff, whether those were the sites of quote unquote giants. There's a conspiracy, if you want to call it that, that say like the Smithsonian archives and stuff, and back in the day, especially the 1800s, you would find something and you might report it, and then someone might show up to your place and be like, you want to, we'll give you money for it, you want to put it in a museum or something, and then these things have never been seen again. There's an interesting place in New Zealand, I don't know if you've heard of it or done a video on it. It's called the Kaiminawa Wall. And they're not it's kind of cordoned off by the local government over there right now, but it appears to be sort of like a megalithic wall with sort of interlocking polygonal masonry type stones as well. And there's stories of sort of red-haired, taller beings that lived out there that sort of built this area, and apparently bones have been found out there. Do you think there's any credence to any of that stuff, or do you think this is all kind of just kind of like a Bigfoot talk or something like that?
No, I
Because
think
these
I,
sorry, these big
yeah,
sites, they are, some
uh-huh.
people think that, oops, sorry.
Actually, I've been to the Kaimanawa Wall. That was
Okay.
about 7 years ago, and they've done a lot of work on it. since I was there, they've done a lot more excavating local
Yeah.
people, and they've shown that it's bigger than what I saw. And then the government comes in and the government closes it off so people aren't allowed to access it anymore. And the same thing with, they found lots of giant skeletons in New Zealand that again, the government have apprehended and, you know, destroyed or buried or whatever, and in North America too. So there is a
Yeah.
fair amount of evidence that there were very tall people in different parts of the world, but governments systematically have been covering the subject up because it doesn't fit in with Darwinian evolution. It doesn't fit in with creationism. So that, you know,
Right.
that's one of the most depressing things, is that when you try to really dig into these subjects, the information gets destroyed very rapidly.
Right. Definitely. And I've noticed that too with the limited research I've done on that subject specifically. I know that New Zealand, I'm not sure, I can't remember the native, what the original natives were referred to then, but those natives, similar to other ancient cultures that talk of previous cultures before them that gave them the knowledge of stuff and such, but the natives of New Zealand claim that there was another race of red-haired, taller, if you want to call them giants, that they sort of wiped out, and they lived up in the mountains. And I know there's other stories like that in Peru and such, which is just interesting. I guess I don't have a question on that. It's kind of fascinating.
Well, the modern day indigenous people are called the Maori,
Maori, yes,
and
yes.
they're about, I think, 20% of the population. And the people who were there before are called the Maori Ori, and they're in the oral tradition. They're supposedly were quite a bit taller. They were light skinned. They had red hair and green eyes, and they were systematically wiped out by the Maori people. But then some of them intermixed with the Maori as well. So there are children um, alive today that still have that genetic red hair. So, you
Right.
know, it is definitely part of their pre-European history, you know, definitely. But it's also a subject that the New Zealand government is trying to discourage people from studying.
Right. Which is a shame. It's really a shame. And I've seen videos on one of the videos that I watched. Can't remember the name of the creator, but they were showing descendants of these people, and some of them have the darker sort of Maori skin, but they'll also have blonde hair and like sort of blue eyes or red
Mhm.
hair, and which is super interesting. Um, so going to another topic, the subject of do you have an interest in psychedelics or like any of that stuff? Because one of Graham Hancock's theories too is, and it's kind of proven, that these ancient cultures had an investment, had a great fascination in things like peyote or uh, DMT in whatever form they had at the time. And then there's a theory of those on these megalithic sites in Turkey, in quite a few other places around the world, these carvings of these sort of taller beings. Some of them have wings. Some of them, if you're in a different part of the world, they might have like a fish head. But they're all carrying these, and not all of them, not everywhere, but a lot of these places, from one side of the world to another, they have the same depiction of these people carrying these handbags sort of things. They look like almost man purses or whatever you want to call them.
Mhm.
And there's and a lot of them too, they're carrying the handbag, and then the other hand is holding something, whether it looks like a pine cone or something like that. And a lot of the ancient cultures, they say that if you believe them, which mainstream likes to laugh at those ideas, but if you believe what the actual ancient cultures say, is that these people kind of reseeded them with knowledge after a cataclysm, or some people think genetically as well. What do you think about that? What do you make of these handbags that are seen from one part of the world to the other, which at a time they shouldn't have even ever communicated. It would take a lifetime to get from one side of the world to the next if you even made it. You know what I mean?
It's curious that it does, that it, they are found in different parts of the world. I think most of them are found in Sumerian depictions and stuff like that, which would be one of the oldest cultures on Earth. And then like you say, the pine cone or the pineal gland is the other thing that supposedly they're carrying.
Yeah.
That's another great unsolved mystery. In regards to psychedelics, I've tried peyote and I've done ayahuasca a couple of times and been very beneficial to me.
Yeah.
Not recommended for recreational use, but if you're seriously searching for things or trying to heal yourself, then I would definitely recommend either one done under very strict conditions by traditional people who administer those medicines.
Right. And for the ayahuasca, is that how many hours is that, or is it days? Is it
I
I'm
think
kind of
it
interested in the ayahuasca.
I think it averages about 4 hours.
Okay. And you were with either shamans or just someone to guide you through it and do it the traditional way, or is
Yes. Well,
okay.
the two times I've done it were with people who had decades and decades of experience in doing it. And
Yeah.
it was on a one-to-one basis. I didn't do it with a big group of people. So
Okay.
that
Yeah.
it was a very personal experience, very, very profound experience, very life-changing for the better kind of
Yeah.
experience.
Definitely. And that's what most people, if they do it the right way and they don't have any pre-existing, like whether they're schizophrenic or something like that, I don't recommend it for people who have that. But I haven't done either of those. I have dabbled in mushroom psilocybin, and that was extremely eye-opening, just to what worlds basically could be, which are just right on the other edge, right on the other side of our baseline consciousness, which is just, it's absolutely fascinating. And so I think these ancient cultures, do you think they I don't know, I don't want to say got the knowledge. Do you think that they were heavily influenced by these sort of things?
Yeah, I think so. I think they were, used as medicines for curing different, psychological problems or medical problems, but also accessing higher states of consciousness for being able to get access to information that otherwise you wouldn't be able to get hold of.
Right. Right. That's super cool. Switching from that to sort of a just quicker, more fun topic. In Peru, um, so you've been there for 13 years, you said?
Mhm.
What is your favorite food in Peru? What's the best Peruvian dish?
I think the seafood is really good here.
Is it?
Yeah.
That's cool. Are you a married man?
Mhm.
Awesome. To a Peruvian woman?
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's cool. Um, that's really fascinating. Do you have any kids?
Nope, got dogs.
Dogs? Heck yeah. Nothing
Yeah.
wrong with that. What kind of dogs you have?
Bull terrier and a pit bull.
That's cool. That's cool. Do you what is there to do? Are you in um what part of Peru are you in? Are you in Cusco? Are you in, do you mind me asking?
So I'm on the coast about 3 hours south of Lima, which is the capital.
Okay.
So I'm in a small town across the street from the ocean. So very, very nice climate,
That's
um,
cool.
access to great local food.
That's awesome. Is there are there any megalithic sites there? Are there any polygonal masonry, anything like that in your area?
A little bit. That's mainly in the highlands, but of course I'm pretty close to the Nazca area. So that's where, the
Okay.
Nazca lines are.
Those Nazca lines are insane, and it's incredible. Sorry to jump again, but it's incredible that the area of those Nazca lines, and then that plateau, which looks like it was just laser cut and almost looks like a runway, and it looks like the top of a mountain was just completely sheared off. And I know that the Giza plateau also has, it's curious because that looks like it was sort of the same way. It looks like it was completely flattened because the area immediately around Giza doesn't seem to be as perfectly flat. It's like it was leveled for that reason. Do you think about that stuff? Do you agree or?
No, I think it's the ocean that was uplifted over the course of time,
Okay.
both in Nazca and also Giza. So there's millions of years of slow tectonic movement causing the both areas to rise up out of the water, because Giza is all limestone, and it's in Nazca you can find lots of fossils and things like that showing that it was the ocean floor at one time.
That's cool. That's super cool. What is what do you make of, jumping one more topic here? What do you make of these UFO UAPs that have been released by the government? Tons of it. These UFO sightings and encounters, if you want to call them that, whatever, they go back further than the 40s and stuff, further than the most famous cases. They're kind of a biblical topic almost. They're kind of ingrained in almost all these ancient cultures. What do you make of the new videos released, I guess, by the government, specifically like the Tic Tac UFO or the Go Fast video from Commander Fraver, if you're familiar with him? What do you make of that stuff?
Well, I think it's good that this stuff is slowly being released. It's about time, because everything's been so undercover for decades, if not hundreds of years. So I'm happy to see that the government is actually finally starting to release relatively recent information that the military itself admit, they can't explain how these things can move so incredibly quickly from just above the ocean straight up into the sky and back and forth and stuff like that. So it's a good beginning. And
Yeah.
of course, more and more people are looking at these subjects. More and more people have phones that have good quality cameras on them. So there's so much that's being recorded. So many sightings in Mexico City, like in Mexico especially, that the government there is much more open to, not trying to cover this stuff up. So I think the U.S. is very much behind other countries. Russia's been doing this kind of stuff for decades of, exploring this stuff. So it's about time that this stuff started to be recognized as being real, and admitting that they didn't make it. They have no idea who did. No country on the planet has technology like that. So it's a good beginning.
Right. And these things, if from the people talking about them, they say that they'll come from, there's the one case Commander Fraver talks about, one of them comes from 80,000 feet to about 50 feet in like half a second, and then hovers or whatever, or where he flies around it, and he's about like 100 miles away from the U.S.S. Nimitz, which is the aircraft carrier that he flew out on, and he's watching this thing, and then in the blink of an eye, just boom, gone. And then says that it shows up on radar by their aircraft carrier within like half a second, which is just incredible. And they talk about him going from space levels, out of the atmosphere levels to just in the air, like our planes and helicopters and such, to actually under the water. So whatever these things are, whether they're technological, or if there's some undiscovered, maybe biological would be harder, but something maybe other dimensionally, something crazy like that. It's super fascinating. Have you yourself ever seen any sort of unexplainable UFO lights or anything?
Yeah, quite a few.
Really?
Especially in this area. This is
Yeah.
one of the major places where people see unidentified objects. So
Right. What was the most startling or intriguing one that you saw? Can you explain that just a little bit?
yeah, about 20 years ago on the island of Maui, I saw a metallic object that was about 200 feet long, kind of a cigar shape. I saw it for about 10 minutes, and it's nothing that I could identify from my living history as to what it was. It wasn't a plane, it wasn't this, it wasn't that.
Right.
And then I've also seen a number of orb-like things here on the coast of Peru that have shown up. It was mainly about 3 years ago that I saw those, quite a few in the space of a few months.
Okay.
And the main feeling I always get is these things show up because they want you to see them.
Right. That's crazy. And there's people like, whether you agree or don't agree with him, but Dr. Stephen Greer, who can kind of almost call these things in just by, he'll do it in large groups, and they'll go out into the desert. I think he does it mostly in Arizona, but they'll all kind of basically meditate and kind of call in these things, whatever they are, and sometimes they'll show up, and it's the videos that they have too are kind of unexplainable, because these lights will show up and they'll come into view and then just disappear and then go from one place to the next or move really quick. That sort of stuff is super interesting. A lot of people, whether it's a coordinated sort of discrediting, but a lot of people discredit that sort of stuff, but I think it's super interesting and worth looking at. Sort of another fun topic. Do you believe in anything paranormal or anything like that? Ghosts, quote unquote?
Yeah, I've had a lot of encounters and stuff like that.
Really? In Peru or younger days, or?
Yeah, when I was a kid.
Okay, yeah. Can you explain any of those, or?
Well, I've seen ghosts, suddenly waking up in the middle of the night and then seeing like a translucent person walking towards me and then disappearing.
Yeah.
And I had one poltergeist experience once in a house that was quite bizarre. But
Yeah.
that was more when I was quite a bit younger.
Okay. I'm the same. I haven't seen anything recently. I've moved from a different house, but I grew up in an old farmhouse in Michigan, Upper Peninsula. And it was built. There was a homestead on the property, so a really old place. It was built early 18. Same with the sauna, the barn, some outbuildings and stuff like that. And then the other part of the house was built in the 1930s or 40s, I believe. And we renovated it. My parents renovated it. We had to add on to the house, but they renovated it top to bottom. And we had a long attic room in the top of the house. And first night in that room, it was a cool room. First night in that room that I stayed in there, could have just been from moving rooms or something like that, but first night sleeping in that part of the house, I was asleep, and I don't know if it was whatever they call like lucid dreaming or something like that, but I woke up and it felt like to the right of my body, but enveloping my whole being, like to the core, it was just someone yelling, just like an angry sort of demonic yell, just to the core of my body, and then kind of couldn't move, and then woke up a few minutes later kind of like sweating, like panic attack. I'm not sure if it was a dream or whatever. So that one was weird. And then one more experience I had was same room, opposite side, and I had my dog. I had a dog at that time, yellow lab golden retriever, just like the nicest dog that you could ever imagine. Wouldn't bark. He would cool with kids, just not a mean bone in his body. He would only bark if someone was like in the driveway, immediate driveway. And we had like a sort of a long dirt driveway, like classic farm driveway. And I had navy blue blacked out sort of curtains. And I woke up one night and my dog on his hind legs, you know how they say dogs and like babies and stuff can sometimes sense these things, but my dog, foot of my bed, woke up to my dog on his hind legs, claws fully fully out, gripping the bed. He's shaking on his back legs and he's just vroom, vroom, just barking at basically the wall at nothing. And had a really weird feeling when I woke up. I'm looking at the same area. Just felt super, didn't see anything, but felt super like something was there. And then I had to like comfort my dog. That stuff is super interesting to me as well. Whether you believe in it or not, but that stuff is very cool. Yeah, that stuff is, and my brother, he had his experience as well, but just that sort of stuff too. It's kind of along the lines of all this stuff of, it's sort of all intertwined with like these other dimensional beings, whether some people think that the UFOs and UAPs and stuff are sort of like demonic or biblical type creatures, you know what I mean? So that's just another line of thinking on that. I guess we can wrap this up. One more question. If you could give your 22-year-old self or 22-year-old anyone some advice, life advice, any sort of advice, what would you give them?
Start traveling.
Start traveling.
Mm-hmm.
You learn a lot from traveling, hey?
Well, you learn a lot. Yeah, you learn a lot more when you visit these places in person.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I recommend people.
That's the thing. It's like these videos are incredible. I watch them on my TV and stuff, and they're incredible on that. But I can't imagine actually being there. I've traveled to a few places. Nothing as far out as Egypt or Peru. I'd like to someday, and hopefully with you and your company, Hidden Inca Tours, which people should really check out. You go all over the place. You go Egypt, Peru, Bolivia. You're in Bolivia, which is South America. Where do you recommend someone go on their first trip? Say if they're going with you, would you recommend going to Egypt? If they're interested in all of those places, would you recommend Egypt first? Is there somewhere you'd recommend first, or is just kind of any one of them?
Yeah, I'd recommend probably Egypt to start with, and then Peru afterwards, because they're the two most obvious places.
Right.
And then over the course of time, Petra in Jordan and Baalbek in Lebanon and Easter Island, lots of different, or Turkey, lots of different places to go.
Turkey. I'd love to go to Turkey for sure. Göbekli Tepe, that's a place that I want to see a lot. Is sorry, one more question. Is Mount Nemrut is in Turkey, correct?
Yeah.
And those have those giant head statues. And what's the theory of that? There's supposedly something under that, or it looks like just a big pile of rubble. It's kind of a really weird sight. And then there's these massive statues. Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, it's called a tell. So it's actually an artificial mountain that was built. And
Okay.
so there are probably lots of tombs underneath it. And then the statues built on top of it.
Interesting. That's super cool. Well, wrap future. This was an experience. This was really cool experience for me, especially meeting you and getting to talk just a little bit about some of this stuff. There's so many topics we haven't covered, and kind of just scratching the surface of this stuff. But this is a great introduction to meeting one of my heroes and getting to talk to you. So I really appreciate this.
Great. Did you get a chance to record it?
I did get it's recording right now. Yeah, it says it's recording. Do you mind if I upload this and I could send it to you as well?
Yeah, please do.
Of course. Yeah, for sure. This is great. If people are watching, definitely go to Brien Foerster's channel on YouTube. I've showed so many friends and family your YouTube channel, and they're always immediately intrigued. Your Instagram, especially if they don't have time to watch a video and they're just sitting and wanting to look at something, you have so many pictures of megalithic sites that'll just completely open your mind to what these things could be, and just different lines of thought of what they could be, because you look at these things and then you try and tell yourself that they were built with bronze aged copper tools and stuff like that, and dudes in loincloths and stuff, and it's clear that it's not that. So definitely check out all of Brien's channels. He posts videos regularly, and they are always great. So appreciate you, Brien. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Talk soon.
Okay, thanks.